Hello and welcome to Chabot News for Thursday, February 19th, 2026. My name is Manny, and today we'll be covering protests in Australia, a bakery burglar, and Girl Scout cookies. In sports news, Lamont has the latest updates on charges against a college football player. Finally, Bruce will give us his top 5 word games that he plays every morning. All that and more coming in today's edition of Chabot News. Israeli President Isaac Herzog received 2 very different receptions in Australia on Monday. A warm welcome by a government determined to show solidarity with its grieving Jewish community, and mass protests by activists who consider him a war criminal. Here's CNN producer Angus Watson with the latest from Sydney.
This is just one of many protests across Australia this evening where thousands of people have come out to condemn the President of Israel, Isaac Herzog, who they say is complicit in the killing of tens of thousands of Palestinians in Gaza as Israel has prosecuted that war against Hamas since October 2023. Now, Isaac Herzog is a guest in Australia for the next 4 days of the Australian government, who welcomed him here in the aftermath of that terror attack at Bondi Beach in December. 15 people killed there when 2 ISIS-inspired gunmen opened fire on a Hanukkah festival. Innocent people killed just for being Jewish. Now, the Jewish community has welcomed him here, saying he's of great solace in their time of grief. But thousands here say that Herzog is complicit potentially in genocide. They accuse him of encouraging genocide through his words. It's important to remember that the President of Israel, the head of state, has a largely ceremonial role, is not a decision maker in the same way that Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister, is, who does have an ICC arrest warrant against him out there for crimes against humanity. But the people here say that Isaac Herzog is complicit as well in that killing of innocent people in Gaza, and that he should be arrested while he's in Australia.
That was CNN producer Angus Watson reporting from Sydney, Australia. As President Herzog's visit continues, Australia remains deeply divided. The Department of Homeland Security is out of time. Democratic senators blocked a funding bill for it Thursday. All other government agencies have been fully funded through September, but money for DHS got held up after Democrats demanded reforms in its immigration enforcement operations. They took that stance after federal agents killed 2 U.S. citizens in Minneapolis last month. Nearly all DHS workers will remain on the job, but many won't get paid until Congress passes a funding bill. Agencies like FEMA, the TSA, and the Coast Guard will be impacted. The deadline to fund DHS was actually Friday night, but Congress is off all week for the President's Day holiday. Many senators left after casting their final votes for the week. GOP leader John Thune vowed to call them back to Washington if Democrats strike a deal with the White House. A horrific event happened last Wednesday due to being inebriated from a controlled substance. One man was taken into custody after his vehicle struck a school bus in Connecticut Wednesday afternoon. Police arrested Richard Estee in Southbury and charged him with driving under the influence. The crash was strong enough to eject 2 students from the bus. Several other students were injured. The impact of the collision also caused the bus to hit another car in the area. Authorities say none of the injuries suffered are life-threatening. So when you are on driving on the roadways, be alert and don't drive while intoxicated. A 59-year-old woman who was hit and killed while crossing a street in Hayward on Saturday has been identified as Olga Hernandez, according to the Alameda County Coroner's Bureau. Hernandez, a Hayward resident, was crossing the street with her 6-year-old grandson at the intersection of West Tennyson Road and Baldwin Street. According to the Hayward Police Department, Hernandez was taken to a hospital where she was pronounced dead. The boy, also taken to the hospital, suffered facial fractures but survived. The 60-year-old driver stopped at the scene and was cooperative with the police. Intoxication was not believed to be a factor in the crash, police said. It was the city's 2nd fatal traffic collision so far in 2026. Surveillance video shows a thief breaking into a Sacramento, California bakery and stealing a mostly empty register. As Peyton Headley reports, the theft was not very well thought out.
Inside this Carmichael shopping center, Palette Cakes has been handcrafting centerpieces for countless celebrations.
We specialize in artfully inspired desserts. This is all handmade sugar flowers.
Husband and wife duo Kelly and Carlos Velasquez own the bakery and run it.
We do everything from the dishes to mopping the floors to the baking to making everything look pretty.
They celebrated their 2 years at this storefront on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, someone threw rocks into their door, climbed inside the shattered glass, and ripped out their register.
I was, just in utter shock.
The biggest thing they took, the Velasquez's sense of security.
What's so silly about this is it was really just a senseless, poor planned part on the criminals that did this because we are a cashless bakery.
They even had a sign on the counter saying just that.
Just for what was in the register, it was a couple of business cards, some pens, and then a small bit of cash just in case someone came in and really wanted a cupcake and only had a little bit of cash.
Since Wednesday morning, they've cleaned up and repaired their door. Now they're catching up on the busy weekend they have ahead.
Valentine's Day in the bakery world is like one of the biggest holidays. It's just incredibly busy.
But they're thankful for any opportunity to help others celebrate.
It's just so incredibly rewarding that it's like we made something from, nothing, sugar, flour, butter, salt, and it's become something so special for the person receiving it.
Thanks for that report, Peyton. The Sacramento County Sheriff's Office is investigating the incident. They're asking the public for any tips. Now we go to Lamont for this week's sports report.
A college football player is in jail on rape charges. Brigham Young University wide receiver Parker Kingston is set to appear in court Friday. Until then, he's being held in a Utah jail without bail. The rape charge dates back to an incident from February 2025. A 20-year-old woman reported a sexual assault at a hospital. Detectives investigated the case for nearly a year before charging Kingston. If convicted, Kingston could serve 5 years to life in prison. A disqualified Olympian from Ukraine has asked to be reinstated to the Winter Games. The International Olympic Committee disqualified Władysław Herszkowicz for breaking rules that prevent athletes from making political statements after it said he wore a helmet with images of athletes killed in the Ukrainian war. Herszkowicz contested, saying the helmet only showed people who were part of the Ukrainian sports family. The skeleton racer appealed his disqualification to the International Bobsleigh and Skeleton Federation. He has asked to perform a supervised official run pending the Court of Arbitration's final decision. The timeline of the court's decision is unclear. That's it for the sports report this week. Now back to you, Manny.
Thanks, Lamont. It can take a while for persistence to pay off, but how about 22 years? That's how long it took one Ohio man's luck to change. He played the same 6 numbers in the state lotto every week. The Akron man even had friends buy the tickets for him when he was out of town. Earlier this month, it all paid off. He hit the jackpot, a $3.5 million jackpot to be exact. Upon seeing the winning numbers, he says he yelled to his wife, "We're going to get a really big pool." As to why he never gave up, the man didn't cite faith or tenacity. He says he's just stubborn. The big winner chose to remain anonymous. He took the cash payout of $1.7 million and says he's now retired. Workers in Philadelphia are putting an exhibit on slavery back up. It comes after a judge ordered the signs to be reinstalled while the lawsuit continues. The panels were removed from Independence National Historic Park last month. They hung at the sites where Presidents George Washington and John Adams once lived. The city filed a lawsuit saying the federal government couldn't remove them without permission. On Monday, a federal judge agreed. She said Congress passed the legislation that specifically limits the Interior Department's ability to alter the park. The Interior Department has said it will appeal the ruling. A deadly weather crisis in New York City. As a cold snap has gripped the area for the past 2 weeks, New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani said the parts of Antarctica were warmer in the Big Apple. Dave Carlin has more.
Another cold weather death announced to a frost-weary city by Mayor Mamdani. The total is now 18.
The total lives lost is now 18. Each life lost is a tragedy, and we will continue to hold their families in our thoughts. I want to thank our dedicated agencies and every city worker who has worked tirelessly through these conditions.
Rock-solid ice mountains stretch up to the frosty sky. An Arctic look remains for this urban cityscape. Crews are toiling to get the ice gone and melted down. Everyone is urged to bundle up and look out for the most vulnerable among us, including those with no shelter and those stuck with no heat inside their homes.
It's still freezing. It's freezing out here.
Power is out for hundreds of customers in Brooklyn and elsewhere. The work to restore service continues around the clock, and the city set up dozens of warming buses and other brick and mortar centers after declaring Code Blue status, which reroutes emergency cold-related 311 calls to 911 for faster attention. For just about everyone, it means adjusting to this physically and mentally, overcoming frozen fatigue as we wait for this cold snap to end.
Thanks, Dave. Mayor Mamdani has said some of the 18 cold deaths also involve drugs. And he said that the city partnered with 2 overdose prevention centers to stay open and handle more cases. Now we go to Bruce with this week's Top 5 segment.
Thanks, Manny. If you're seeking a quick and effective way to enhance your cognitive abilities in just a few minutes a day, I've compiled my top 5 word games that I play every morning with a cup of coffee. At number 5, Spelling Bee. You're given 7 letters and challenged to make as many words as possible, but every word has to include the center letter. The real goal is finding a pangram, the word that uses all 7 letters at once. It's simple in concept, but a serious vocabulary workout. Number 4 goes to Apple News. Emoji game. Instead of traditional clues, you decode phrases, movie titles, or expressions using emojis. It forces you to think visually and linguistically at the same time. It's quick, creative, and often trickier than it looks. Coming in at number 3, Strands from the New York Times. It's a themed word search where every word connects to a hidden topic, and one special word called the spangram, which stretches across the board. Words can bend and twist in any direction, so it rewards careful scanning and pattern recognition. Number 2 is Apple News Mini Crossword. It's a condensed crossword puzzle that you can usually finish in just a few minutes. I shoot to solve the problem in less than 1 minute. The clues are clever but fair, making it a perfect distraction before you start your day. And my number 1 pick is Wordle. You get 6 chances to guess a 5-letter word with color-coded clues guiding you closer each time. It's easy to learn, tough to master, and everyone gets the same puzzle each day. I post my daily results on a friend's social media account to compare with others. Sometimes it makes you feel dumb, other times a genius. What makes these my top 5? They're quick, smart, and each challenges your brain in a different way. Vocabulary, logic, visual thinking, and strategy, all in just a few minutes a day. And honestly, feels good to win something before breakfast. Now back to you, Manny.
Thanks, Bruce. Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai has been sentenced to 20 years in prison in a landmark national security case. The sentence is the culmination of a years-long legal saga for the 78-year-old billionaire. CNN's Christy Lustow is outside the Hong Kong courthouse with the latest.
I'm standing outside the court where the former Hong Kong media mogul and longtime critic of China, Jimmy Lai, has been sentenced to 20 years in prison. In December, he was found guilty of sedition and 2 counts of colluding with foreign forces. Now, collusion here in Hong Kong, under the Beijing-imposed national security law, is a very serious crime, punishable by up to life in prison. Jimmy Lai earlier had pleaded not guilty to all the charges. Now, in December, the 3 judges presiding over the case and convicted Jimmy Lai Lai. They called him a, quote, mastermind of conspiracies. They pointed out his lobbying of U.S. politicians during President Donald Trump's first term, as well as how he used his empire, namely his Apple Daily newspaper, to call for international sanctions against China and Hong Kong during the 2019 protests. Now, this has been the most high-profile national security case since the law was imposed by Beijing on Hong Kong in 2020. It has been roundly criticized by Western governments. The U.S. and other countries have called for the release of Jimmy Lai. In fact, U.S. President Donald Trump reportedly pressed Chinese leader Xi Jinping to free Jimmy Lai during their talks last year. Now, China has repeatedly warned against any interference, and Hong Kong has insisted that Jimmy Lai has received a fair trial. So what happens next? Well, an appeal could be a long, drawn-out process with a low success rate. As for Jimmy Lai, he is 78 years old and has already spent more than 5 years in prison.
Thank you for that report, Christy. Girl Scout cookie season is in full swing across the country. And in Pennsylvania, good luck trying to top the sales of a 6-year-old girl. She's broken the state record by selling more than 81,000 boxes of cookies. Josh Taylor has more on the viral video that has helped her growing success.
Pim wanted to join the Girl Scouts because when she was 3, she saw the girls selling cookies.
Pim has multiple disabilities, but she hasn't let it slow her down. And Pim's dad, Luke, says her path to becoming a Girl Scout wasn't easy.
Our first troop, unfortunately, when we tried to join and asked questions about joining, the lady said that Pim's disabilities would hold back the troop, and they didn't want her to join. So we asked again at another booth, and so they didn't want little girls in their troop because little girls don't show up and help.
But they eventually found the perfect troop in the area.
So we live in the city of Pittsburgh, and we have to travel to the Baldwin-Whitehall area, which we're completely fine with. The troop is a great fit for Pim.
And when Pim's first cookie season came around in January, she hit the ground running.
And then by that first Friday, we had 819 boxes already. Our service unit manager said to us, 819 boxes is probably about her cap until she booths. And I've never seen a daisy, let alone a first-year daisy, sell more than 700 to 1,000 boxes. Challenge accepted.
And then there was that single day that everything changed.
Hi, my name is Pim. Do you want to buy some Girl Scout cookies?
I'd love to buy some Girl Scout cookies. Did I hear that you sold a lot of cookies yesterday in one day?
Yes.
20,000 boxes sold in 24 hours, all thanks to one video on TikTok.
People on TikTok rallied. They loved her. They adored her. They supported her. And it has been so incredible.
And Pim isn't slowing down anytime soon.
We are over the moon about her progress, who we are able to support. Yes, we are over the moon. It means we're very happy.
And Luke says that's the main goal, to create joy.
Thanks, Josh. Pim's dad added the experience is teaching her the value of hard work and how to succeed as an entrepreneur. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration is advising some restaurants and retailers not to sell a certain oyster due to a major health concern. The FDA says there are more raw oysters from Stellar Bay shellfish in Canada that could potentially be contaminated with the Norovirus. This recall covers Cushy, Chrome Point, Stellar Bay, and Stellar Bay Gold brand oysters. The oysters were harvested from the British Columbia area between December 22nd and February 4th. They were then shipped to restaurants and food retailers in at least 10 U.S. states. Businesses are urged not to serve or sell the oysters. A full list of lot numbers in affected states can be found on the FDA's website. The health alert was first reported by the Washington Department of Public Health on February 3rd, due to reports of illnesses. Common symptoms of norovirus include diarrhea, nausea, fever, and stomach pains. Most people with norovirus usually get better within 1 to 3 days. From chasing a dream to becoming a force of purpose, this episode dives into the journey of Sancho DiMera, the X Factor. From finding his voice in podcasting to commanding the wrestling ring and coaching the next generation. His story is about discipline, identity, and having the courage to live out what others only imagine.
On this episode of Evolve the Earth Talk Show, I sat down with wrestler, coach, and podcaster Sancho DiMera, also known as the X Factor. From teaching the classroom to commanding the ring, Sancho has built a career driven by passion and persistence.
I watched it as a kid. People as kids, I want to do this, I want to do that, then they grow up and they never really do it. I think I'm one of the very few that actually kind of followed that dream.
That dream began with podcasting at Chabot College, grew into commentary, and eventually led him into the ring himself.
Being a commentator, narrating the action, but it's a whole other ball game when you're in there. We control the oohs and the ahs and the cheers and the boos of the crowd. We're puppet masters.
He brings that same energy into coaching high school wrestling, where discipline in the classroom mirrors discipline in the ring.
Practice like you would play. Piss poor practice results in piss poor performance. I hold my students to a standard and I hold myself to a certain standard.
Sancho also co-founded the Melanin Mafia, a wrestling brand that emphasizes identity and representation on the independent scene.
We're unapologetically black. Every show I go to, people are like, hey man, I love your videos. I've seen people wearing our shirt and like, okay, it is working.
And for the next generation of dreamers, he leaves this message.
Decide what you want to be and go be it. At 8 years old, I knew I wanted to be a professional wrestler. Fight for your dreams, they'll fight for you. Decide what you want to be and go be it.
That's Sancho DiMera, the wrestler, coach, podcaster, and motivator. To watch the full conversation, visit youtube.com/@ETE Talk Show. I am your host, Alan Sampson, reporting for Chabot TV.
Follow the dream, find your voice, become the X Factor. That's all for Chabot News this week. Thanks to all the students and staff in the Mass Communications Department here at Chabot College for making this production possible. You can watch us anytime online at youtube.com/Chabot TV. Stay tuned to KCTH Channel 27 on Comcast for more Chabot TV.